Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Booming Encore's Learning Bites. My name is Susan Williams, and I'm the founder of Booming Encore. And today I'm joined by Joe Carella. Joe is the Executive Director of the Scandinavian Living Center in Newton, Massachusetts, and the author of Creating Unlimited Options for Aging: The Path Forward. Joe started the Scandinavian Living Center, a nonprofit living center housing 40 apartments about 2 decades ago, under a community-based learning model. Joe is joining me today to talk about what community-based living is and why it's important. Welcome, Joe.
Hi, Susan. Thank you for having me and giving me the opportunity to share.
Great to have you, Joe. So, Joe, why don't we just start off? What exactly is the philosophy behind community-based living?
Well, the wisdom behind community-centered living is that it eliminates institutional isolation, segregation, design. It starts there. And the philosophy is that it's just a gathering opportunity, creating gathering opportunities for the entire community. And when I say entire community, it's the residents living in any type of housing community, from nursing homes to independent. They're part of the entire community. So I tell people, well, start with just trying to find out what the need is, the gathering need. And some of the foundations behind community-centered living is creating a welcoming residential setting, again, for the entire community. By saying that, immediately, overnight, the segregation goes away because the seniors, the adults, are part of the entire community. So if a nursing home, for example, embraces community-centered living and they say, we want to bring people to our place, they have to change. They have to create a residential setting for everybody, which means and we have nursing homes that are changing. We're getting away from the 2 and 3 people in a room, but that becomes more residential. The common spaces become a gathering place because people have to choose to come to your place, which is the second principle of autonomy. Today, we say, well, you come to our housing place and you're going to be given autonomy. It's regulated. It's part of your Bill of Rights. Autonomy never goes away. But if you embrace community-centered living, the autonomy becomes part of the entire community. Everyone has to choose to come to your venue or to go somewhere else. And again, the residents are part of that decision-making. So you don't segregate that to just one group of people. It belongs to everyone. And the beauty is, when someone comes into a facility today that's isolated, their journey in life where you connect, it's not a straight line. Their human connections gets narrowed. But with community-centered living, we look at lifestyle. And today we put activities, programs together to maintain their interests. But with community-centered living, the community's coming in with all their clubs and interests, and the residents living at these housing places, plus the entire community, gets to expand their lifestyle. So it's pretty powerful. It can impact cities and towns across North.
So it's almost like having a community center sort of as the hub, and then there's people actually sort of living just outside that hub or within that hub. Is that sort of a good analogy?
Great analogy, but it's a community center for everybody. Oh. And the impact is amazing. I mean, we had, people ask me, why is it important? Why is community center important? Because it creates a new normal. I mean, it creates a new normal, and I'd like to think that we bring back normal. Community is normal, and we've been stuck for almost a century, and it's not a bad thing. Almost a century ago, we had to take care of elders and older adults, and we said, what are we going to do? Most of us looked at the hospital model. At the time, it made sense, but what happened was we created these institutions. But today, we have housing, and we want to care, but it's become housing and protection because we all focus, including myself, let's build a better house, let's build a better box. But community-centered living is about building something for the entire community. And the perception that you and I, even elders, they see loved ones for the past almost several decades, going into these housing communities, and they're isolated. So that's why we hear people saying, I want to die in my home. My own mother said that. But what it is they don't want to go into an institution. An institution to me is when you segregate and isolate. So the impact of community-centered living is that it creates this observational wisdom from everybody coming to the Scandinavian Living Center. They're seeing, wait a minute, this is normal. Why? This is a gathering place. Some cases, people have no idea that it's an assisted living. And to me, that's success. People say to me, well, it's a great marketing thing. And it's like, you know what, that's a benefit. But the really true marketing of community-centered living is if someone comes to your facility or your housing community has no idea that it's an assisted living or a nursing home. They're just there to gather. That's the important part of community centered living.
Now, Joe, this has been going on for a number of years in Scandinavia. Why has it taken so long for this sort of thinking to actually make its way over to North America, do you think?
That's a great question. I think Scandinavians are into community. I mean, there's a reason why they always make the top 10 or top 5 list for being the happiest countries in the world. They focus on keeping people together, keeping the community, the neighborhood together. I think in this country, we have that perception, and I call it housing plus protection, which is protection is basically we built housing plus caring, and that's all we've done. We've isolated these beautiful buildings from the neighborhood or the community. But because it's isolating, it's become housing plus protection. So in our minds, as I alluded to earlier, we think that once you go to these places, you're isolated. Pushback is people have a hard time believing that housing can be a gathering place. And the only way they get it is to see it. So we're lucky we have the Scandinavian Living Center to look at. It's a small place. It's 40 apartments, but I'll challenge everybody. We have over 40 organizations that utilize our center for gathering as a hub, as a headquarters, as a gathering place. In addition to that, and that number is growing. And then we have over 2,000 visitors a month that come to the center. And I'm not including family and friends or residents, because we all should go and come and visit, right? It's just people in the neighborhood that are coming because they realize the Scandinavian Living Center is a cool place, quote, to gather. Can you imagine being a cool place? I went into Boston a few weeks ago, and I left my car here for a couple of days, and my wife and I went off and had some fun in Boston, came back on a Saturday to pick up my car. And I saw children playing on the lawn and their parents on our out cafe patio. They weren't there to visit residents. They were there just to gather. And I said, can you imagine young families coming here just to hang out? That's community-centered living. It's changing the way we look at housing. It's a community event.
Well, it certainly sounds amazing. So what sort of activities do you have going on in your location?
I would say anything that the community wants, we have, all ages. We have clubs that come here. We 40 plus organizations. Sometimes there's lectures or programs going on that I don't know about. I'll be in the city of Newton at a meeting, and someone will tell me, well, there's this great program, and I'll raise my hand and say, where is that? And they say, Joe, it's at the Scandinavian Living Center. So it's basically creating unlimited opportunities to gather. So everything under the sun works. Our cultural director, we have a cultural center here as one of the 40 plus organizations. And I remember when I was hiring the director, I said, this is not about the residents. It's about, she said, what kind of programs though? I said, what about the residents? I said, no, forget about the residents. I want you to focus on the entire community. Now it was unfair because what I didn't tell her is the entire community included the residents, but I freed her up to bring everything here under the sun. Programs, and not worry, because it's all about creating unlimited options, opportunities to gather. So we can have a yo-yo show one day, a magic show, we can have a lecture, we can have movies, we have a pop-up cafe, we have an outpatient rehab here, we have a village group here. I have a Newton Village group here that has their headquarters. The village movement is about keeping people out of assisted livings and nursing homes and keeping them in the community. And what's happened, again, you don't predict the opportunities here. I had a resident who was at the time 101. She moved in at 98. She was a firecracker. She lived to be 106. She decided to volunteer for this Newton at home group. It's a village group. Her job, living in an assisted living, was to call a shut-in elder in the city of Newton to make sure he was safe. It's incredible because it's really the connection to the community. And the only way that happens is just not try to structure or regulate it, just allow the community to decide for the programs.
So it's almost like you're really a facilitator of the community, for lack of a better word.
Well, the community becomes a facilitator. They know that it's a gathering place, and they say, well, can we come there and do this program? And what happens is the cultural center, we sell tickets, but the residents, that's their benefit. They get to go for free. All of us buy tickets. I mean, the cultural center sell tickets. The living center had a program. We sold tickets. Why not? So it's about creating a venue, a gathering opportunity. And once you do that, everything changes. We deinstitutionalize the thinking, the housing, And we start to attack isolation, even in the cities and towns, because we're connecting people. And there's no blueprint, because the beauty of it is every city and town is different. So you can just basically start there. What does the community need for gathering? Don't limit that to the 50 plus crowd or the 40 plus. The entire community. What is the gathering needs or spaces? And then go from there. Then add the housing. I think it makes an impact because we decentralize everything, segregate. Segregation never works with any population. Community always works. You succeed when you do things together. As a nonprofit organization, I have an unfair advantage. I can dream big. I can do anything I want because all I have to do is convince the community. If I say I want to do this, it happens because the community has to embrace the dream. That's the way it needs to be. Community solves this, not an organization. It's not up to the developer, the nonprofit, or the for-profit. The city and towns have to work with these developers who are doing wonderful work, trying to give us something beautiful. And we need to say, give us a gathering place for this, 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 and this, and then you can add your housing. We invest in our education for our children, and then these children grow up, become adults, become elders. They have something to give back, and through it all, they get isolated and segregated. All I'm saying, let's connect the entire population and let us interchange and share ideas. That's what community-centered living does. Things happen that amaze me even today.
That's great, Joe. I can definitely feel your passion for this. So what should someone do if they want to try and start or move this idea forward in their own community? What would you suggest?
That's a great question, because when we built the Scandinavian Living Center, we built all this common space, but we didn't communicate with the community. And it took the city of Newton. The city of Newton is doing things differently because of what we're doing. But I would say start with the cities and towns. Have a discussion about the gathering need for that city and town, because you really need to have the cities and towns and the states working with you, because this is a solution. This is not an obstacle. This solves many problems, starting from institutional living to institutional thinking, isolation, segregation. So start with the gathering need. And it's funny, when you put a business plan together, the last thing you think about is the money. You don't, because you have to do the right thing first, and then everything comes together. So I think if that helps.
Yeah. No, I think that's great, Joe. I mean, it definitely sounds like this is a great alternative for sure for some of the things that we're going to be facing. We have an aging population, and this aging population is growing and will continue to grow. And it's not something that sits even a bubble. This is what they're calling the flattening of aging. So we're going to have to rethink our models. And I really appreciate you taking the time today to share with us what community-centered living is and how, it benefits not just the elderly, but also the whole community as a whole. And that's a great news. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Susan, for the opportunity.
So that's it for today, everybody. Hope this information helps you live your best booming encore, and we'll see you again soon. Bye for now, everyone.